discovered that it was in fact a fire, and by then the flames had engulfed a large part of the roof. Worse, my suspicion was accurate. We were the only ones there. I asked my wife, Lisa, to call 911, and then I ran inside to warn people to get out. Once I reached the third floor, I frantically started to bang on the doors, one by one, but at each door there was no response. I then ran down to the second floor and did the same. As I was about to go down to the first floor, a shirtless young man with disheveled hair stuck his head out of one of the second-floor units. He cracked the door open, and as I ran back to meet him, I was hit with a wall of marijuana smoke. "Yo, my man, what's up?" he said with a slight grin. "What's up is that your apartment is about to burn to the ground. Put your joint down and help me get people out of here." We ran down the steps to the first floor. Two couples responded to our knocking. "There's an elderly lady on the third floor," one woman shouted. "Did you get her out?" My heart sank. After racing back up to the third floor, we began furiously pounding on her door. The first-floor neighbor yelled, "She gets confused easily. We may have to break down the door." But just as she said that, the handle slowly began to turn. Coughing, confused, and minutes away from being consumed by the fire, she followed her neighbors down to safety. As we stepped out the front door, we heard sirens in the distance. After we guided the elderly woman into the hands of the paramedics, I turned around and watched the firemen storm up the apartment steps to stop the blaze. As I stood there, the weight of it all hit me. I let out a deep sigh and thought to myself, what would have happened if I had kept driving? A few hours later, when my adrenaline had finally worn down and the kids were asleep, a bizarre thought came out of nowhere. I call it a thought because to this day I'm still not sure if what popped into my mind came from God or from the triple stack of chocolate chip pancakes from IHOP digesting in my stomach. Here's what came to my mind. Let me get this straight. You're willing to run into a burning building to save someone's life, but non-Christians all around you are going to hell, and you don't believe it, let alone lift a finger to help. Admittedly, I was a little freaked out by the thought, but at the time I blew it off as a lingering remnant of my conservative evangelical upbringing. 4 years prior to this event, I had graduated from seminary, and with the endless boxes of books I lugged into the moving truck when I left, I also packed my watered-down theology, a healthy dose of skepticism about biblical authority, and a nail-tight conviction that hell was a mythological concept that no loving and thinking Christian could accept. I had weighed the evidence, read all the books, and sat at the feet of experts for 3 years. Now the verdict was in. The Bible's teaching about hell was inaccurate at best and hateful at worst. What I was taught as a child was a lie, and now that I was becoming a pastor, I was sure I'd never perpetuate that ridiculous myth again. Objections to hell. Undoubtedly, you're a smart person. You like to read, and you were intrigued enough by the topic of hell and eternal damnation to give this book a go. Either that or the bookstore didn't have that Dan Brown novel you were looking for. And so I think you can understand the 6 good reasons it seemed ridiculous to me that God would send anyone to hell. Read through these objections and see if you resonate with how I felt. 1. Hell is a very unpopular idea. Hell has always been an unpopular concept, and for obvious reasons. According to a recent survey by the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life, only 59% of Americans believe in hell. That's 6 out of 10 people, a slight majority in any room. But another poll narrowed the question even more and discovered that fewer than half of all Americans, 43%, thought people go to heaven or hell depending on their actions on earth.